Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Ladd, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode number 184. We have an amazing guest for you today. I've been talking a lot over the last few weeks about having random conversations with people and how it opens doors and things like that. In the walking group that I do in Bath, which I've spoke about as well, there was a guy who came for a walk on that, and he introduced me to our guest today. So I'll tell you who it is in a minute, but he basically said, "Do you want us to put you in touch and get him on the podcast?" And it was a resounding capitals yes. But before we get to that, let me introduce James, our regular co-host, who usually introduces me, but it's my turn this time. How are you doing, James? You all right?
I'm very good indeed. Yeah, very good indeed. And I have to say, really looking forward to this conversation. Since you told me, you'd lined up this guest, I've been kind of watching stuff and following him and listening to stuff and reading stuff. And yeah, this is going to be right up our street, I think. And we've already, just prior to pressing record, found out something that he's doing next weekend, which we've referenced in a previous podcast. So it's really good how all these things kind of fit together. So no, looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's something local to me as well. But I mean, I can't do it because I've got a bad leg or something. I'll think of something. No,
I think you need more. I think you need more than a week's notice as well, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So who we've got on today? Let me introduce. It is Mr. Sean Conway. How are you doing, Sean?
Hello, chaps. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm very good. Yeah, excited. It's rainy in Wales here today, which is annoying, but yeah, I'm looking forward to next weekend. Everything's gearing up to next Friday for me right now. So yeah.
Excellent. So just to give people a little rundown of a few things. I've wrote down loads, but you've done 105 Ironmans in 105 days. You've cycled around the world. You've swam the length of Britain. You were the first person to do that. You've done a 4,200 mile triathlon.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out because I saw that on the website, and then I thought I could look it up, but no. Well, and I was trying to think, like, is most of that bike ride? Is it like, how much is running? How does it?
Yeah. It's the same percentages, so you just divide the total distance into the same proportions. So on any triathlon, the bike ride is 2/3 of it, right? So if you do an Ironman, it's 2.4 swim, and then 112 bike, and then only a 26 run. So so on that triathlon was 120 miles swim, 3,500 mile bike, and then 800 and something mile run. Yeah, I forget the exact numbers, but it's somewhere there, basically.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's excellent. And you also came second in the cheese rolling.
Yeah, I've got the certificate here.
No, because the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I've seen that hill. Look at that. Yeah. Brilliant.
2009, second place. I was gutted. You win the cheese if you come first.
I've done the Cotswolds Way a couple of times, and I've walked past that hill.
It's steep, isn't it? It's way steeper than it looks.
It's steeper than it looks on the telly. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. It's vertical. Like, you can't even walk down it.
No.
Honestly, it's crazy. Yeah.
There's a fence at the bottom as well, isn't there?
A brick wall. No, it's a brick wall. They have to put hay bales in front of the wall and the Gloucester rugby team to tackle you so you don't hit the wall. I don't know what's worse. I'd rather hit the wall than to get the Gloucester rugby team to T-bone me.
Yeah, I mean, there's hitting a wall in your marathon or whatever in a triathlon, and then there's hitting an actual full-on physical wall, isn't there?
Yeah,
so,
no. But the Gloucester rugby team do a pretty good job of stopping you hitting that wall, and that becomes in itself quite entertaining, especially for the people who decide to go down a bit slowly. Then the rugby players are like, right, we're going to have this. We're going to have it now.
Yeah, you're not hurt enough, so I'm going to
if you go down, if you sort of slide down on your bum and you come in last, you've got like 7 rugby players waiting for you. So it's almost better just to like cartwheel and break your shoulder like I did.
All right, okay, blimey. So so basically it's like I say, there's all this stuff to talk about, which we won't get to it all, I wouldn't have thought. But what interested me was just in the beginning, it was kind of like you just said you sold your business for a pound.
Yeah.
And I saw it was a pound note.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, that must have been a while ago. But then you said it was a Jersey pound note, because it's funny, I've got a Guernsey one here because my missus is from Guernsey and she gave me this. So I treasure it. It stays with me everywhere.
No, they still using that. Yep, yeah, it's still in circulation. Yep,
absolutely, yeah. So you know what kind of happened there? Because for me, looking at your kind of story, that's where it kind of all of this started.
Yeah,
but obviously I don't know. So over to you.
Yeah, I mean the short version of that is I used to be a photographer. Thought I'd be this amazing travel journalist, traveling the world, shooting for National Geographic. Didn't do that. Chose the money, which in my case was photographing school kids at nursery schools. So, I buy these pictures of my kids now at nursery school. And yeah, that's unfortunately was my life. So instead of sort of being in the jungles of Peru or the Atacama Desert or somewhere exciting, I was on a 6-foot square white background photographing crying babies getting the flu 107 times a year, right? So I turned 30, and then it should make no difference, these milestones. Like, why didn't this happen when I should have quit when I was 28, but I sort of, the Irish in me is like, just crack on, suck it up, and freaking just sort your shit out, man, and carry on going. But really, sometimes you just need to know when things are not good for you, right? Turned 30, decided to sell my shares in the company we set up to my business partner James, who's from Jersey. And then was sort of just skint. I was like, right, well, I've got no money. I want to go traveling. How? And I was just trying to think outside the box. I was like, all right, how can I get someone else to fund my travels? No. So originally my thought process was, if I work for some sort of travel magazine, they'll pay for my sort of dream and desire to travel the world and meet people and photograph interesting people and maybe discover something new. There was obviously some sort of explorer in me. Well, I know there was, definitely. It wasn't the camera now, because I'd fallen out of love with that. So I thought, well, what else could it be? And then I sort of saw, there's a couple of things that happened. I registered Mark Beaumont's Round the World cycle, and I saw that had been sponsored. That was a couple of years before, of course. That was 2008, I think. I'm going to get that wrong, but somewhere there. And this was 2011 that I eventually decided to pack it in. And I, people climb Everest and row oceans, and they all seem to have these like sponsors on them. And I was like, well, someone's paying for them to do that, right? They're not. Most of them looks like they don't have. It's not their own savings, because otherwise they wouldn't bother doing the sponsorship thing. So, and that just got my brain thinking, like, well, what can I do that allows me to travel and someone else will pay for it? And I thought, well, I better try and break a record, because that's more likely to get someone to sort of give me some sponsorship, I guess. And the first thing and at the time, so this is sort of where some stars aligned. Vin Cox, who had the record for cycling around the world in 2010, he decided to sort of, he's came up with this brainchild of, right, well, whoever wants to break my record, because it's inevitable, why don't you all start on the same day at the same time and make a race out of it? Like, that could be kind of cool. So that captured my attention, because I thought, well, if I'm part of an official race and other athletes, other cyclists have sponsors, maybe it's more likely for me to get a sponsor as well. And I like the idea of going in a race. So that's sort of where it started, really. I sort of got into this world of ultra, and initially sort of adventure, then it's really moved across to sport now, really, from adventure. In the world of sort of explore or adventure, you've got exploration on one end, and you've got sport on the other end, athleticism. Yeah. So the explorers go off and discover things and travel, and it's more, I don't want to say holiday based, but there's no real time element to it. Like, if they want to go to the jungle and sit around in a camp for months and discover, not to say it's not hard, it's living hard when you go, into the jungle and getting malaria every 5 seconds and trench foot and all that sort of thing. So it's hard, but there's often no time element to it. Whereas the stuff I do is more on the sports side of adventure, where it's world records and it's speed and it's performance and all that sort of thing. So I've slowly moved towards that.
Which is probably more exciting, I would imagine, because I've seen, you see the things about the documentaries about people who go into the jungle and what have you, and they basically just sit around waiting for things to happen with cameras for months, don't they? Waiting for I've seen it like on the wildlife documentaries where they're waiting for a crocodile to move for for 6 months.
Yeah, I mean it's more fun though. I mean, I sort of every time I do one of these hard things, I'm like, oh, why didn't I just try and pretend to be like a ye olde explorer? I mean, if you look at my office here, I'm sort of I was born 200 years too late, So yeah, I mean, the sort of the sports side of adventure travel, if you could call it, it gets some flack, it gets some stick. I get it now and then, like, oh, you cycled around the world, but you didn't really see the world. And I'll agree, I didn't see the world. No, I didn't at all. I was, doing 200 miles a day, pushing it hard. But what I got from it though was more than I would have got had I just been aimlessly traveling. It was sort of like, and I've used this analogy before, I sort of did the wine tasting version of world travel, where, I just was like getting a little tidbit of each country. And now I know, oh, actually, I quite like that one, and that one. And I'm going to go back there eventually. I'm only 42, man. I've got another 50 years on this planet. So I can always go back later, right? And if you go to a wine tasting, you don't get to the third shot of wine and go, oh no, I like this one, I'm going to stop here and go home. You take a bottle of it home, right? No, you carry on anyway, because that's the journey you're on. So for me, having that physical goal, something to chase, something difficult, something that I would feel very proud of achieving at the end, all that far outweighs the sort of, for me, this aimlessly cycling around the world, or doing stuff for the sake of travel, because I get agitated, I get bored, unless I have really something to sink my teeth into. And for me, it just turns out something that is physically and mentally demanding over a long period of time seems to scratch that itch in me, that desire, that hunger, that nothing else in life that I've found has been able to do. And I'm looking, because it'd be quite nice if I didn't have to do 105 Ironmans to feel satisfied in life. If I'm honest, it'd be quite nice if I could just grow some vegetables, and that'd be great. But
this is the thing that I was thinking, because like you said, right, so 2011 was when you changed your life. So before that, were you into this sort of stuff, or did
no,
where does it come, like, you know what I mean? It's it almost looks to me like it's gone, oh, I'm working, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then 2011, right, I've hit 30. That's a thing, by the way. I can't remember the name of the book, but if you've got a 9 in your age, you're more likely to change lots of things before you hit the next decade.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
That's a thing that happens with people. But yeah, so it seems like it's almost like you got to 2011 and then just went, right, I'm gonna start doing ultra endurance stuff, when I've never done anything like that before. So
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it was just naivety, stupidness. I just had to try, really, and I was very prepared to fail. I was very prepared to go, well, at least I had a crack at it, and didn't work out. Which is exactly what happened. The Around the World bike ride didn't work out. Got run over in America, and it ended that world record attempt, and whatever. So, but at least I just had to do something. I had to just try something, because this sort of existence I was leading, which was just doing something that didn't fulfill me purely to earn more money. I also landed up in that classic sort of never-ending loop where you earn more money, but it doesn't change your lifestyle. All that happened is I landed up buying more expensive versions of the stuff I had already. So
they call that like being stuck in the rat race almost, isn't it? You earn more money, you maybe get a bigger mortgage, or your expenses increase, so you're always just working to pay the bills and do things. So prior to this sort of 30 years old, Sean, what was your biggest kind of athletic achievement? Or I mean, because the list of stuff that I know we'll get to, and that Pete obviously mentioned at the start, is absolutely incredible. But what prior to that, I mean, had you run a marathon? Had you done any endurance cycling events? Were you a fit and active person? I mean, or was it a total change when you changed to 30?
Yeah. From an athletic point of view, total change. I'd never done anything that had an athletic angle to it once I left school. So at school, I did cross country and swimming and a bit of canoeing. And, so I was active at school. And then in my entire 20s, I didn't own a pair of trainers, never ran anywhere, anything. I did cycle Land's End to John O'Groats when I was 28. So a couple of years before, but that was super slow. There was zero athletic achievement in that. It took me 25 days. So, I was doing 30 miles a day or 40 miles a day, right? So there was, there was zero sort of performance pedigree in me when I turned 30. So it really was a sort of a stab in the dark. That said, biologically, it's not like I was really overweight. Being a photographer means you're fairly active. I wasn't sitting at a desk all day, for example. Well, the last couple of years I was sitting at a desk all day, mostly, but I still got out and about. I'm quite a hyperactive person, or over. I don't like the word hyperactive, but I'm an overactive person. I like just to be active. I don't like to sit around a lot. I get bored easily, so I'm always doing stuff. But there was definitely zero, like, as I say, performance or sport to it type thing. I think, the first bike ride I did so once I decided to cycle around the world, I got my Land's End to John O'Groats bike ride out the shed, which I hadn't ridden for 2 years. And I tried to cycle London to Brighton, and I got to Crawley, which is 20 miles in, 30 miles in. I got puncture, didn't know how to change it, so I had to catch the train home. So, I really was starting at zero. But, I had the passion and the dream, and I was like, right, that's it. So I trained 40 hours a week for that round the world ride. 20 hours of that was Saturday. Every Saturday I'd get up at sort of 4 a.m. and cycle to midnight. So a big chunk of that was on one day, but I was still doing 20 hours a week for the rest of the week. So I was just had the fire in the belly, really, just trying to do something interesting. Really,
it's so incredible, because I think most people, the way it normally would happen is that it take running, for example, someone would, go out jogging a few times, maybe do a couch to 5K, do a few park runs, run a 5K, then think, oh, I'll do a 10K next. And then they'll set their mind to maybe a half marathon and then a full marathon, or 10 miles, then a half marathon, then a full marathon. But so really, with zero training, with zero experience of that kind of thing, you just decided, I'm going to cycle around the world, and I'm going to do this. So that's a totally different way of approaching it, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, there's two ways that people would like to do things, I guess, and the one way is your ways, the small achievable goals that you can see ahead of you. So, like, right, I all I want to do is run 5K, and there's people who they never think past the 5K. They go, right, I just want to be able to do couch to 5K, and then they get to the 5K and they go, oh, okay, well, I wonder maybe I can go for 10K, and then that's the way their thought process works. For me, I reverse engineer it. I sit here going, oh, I want to run the tunnel. 200 miles. Now, I'll reverse engineer that. So if I'm at scratch, I'll go, right, I'm going to give myself 2 years. And then I will naturally just do the 5K, then the 10K, then the half, then the full, and it'll just happen progressively. But for me, I've always got the big scary thing to chase, because I'm not very good at then just kind of moving my bar higher and higher. I'm like, that just doesn't work with me. I'd rather just choose the highest bar I can initially. And not to say
is that because that's what excites you and that's what motivates you, having that big scary thing to work towards. Yeah, okay.
I have to have something big. Now, so the tunnel isn't really the top of the bar, but so I have lots of them. I have lots of these big scary things, and some are a little easier than others, some are much harder than others, like the 105 Ironman, all these sort of things. There's got to be a really compelling and difficult element to it for me to bother getting out of bed to do the 5K, then the 10K, and do the baby steps to get there. The downside is I can and often do it. If you look at all my failures on my website, the hiccups I call them, I do often go into stuff unprepared because I've maybe tried to fast track that process a little bit too much, because I'm like, right, I'm gonna, so run the length of Britain. I'm gonna run the length of Britain. What's that? 1,000 miles or whatever, and I just didn't do the foundation. I did fall over as well, and that was the last straw on that one. But still, I wasn't conditioned enough because I was a bit too impatient, and I am a little bit impatient, unfortunately. And that's like, I do have to rein it in, and I often fail the first time I try something. The Ironmans took me 2 attempts. Running the length of Britain took me 2 attempts. My cycle across Europe took me 2 attempts. So that is the flaw in my way of thinking. Is often I go in a little bit too unprepared, but
that's kind of, it sounds like that's kind of a process then, because you try something, it doesn't necessarily work, and then you're more prepared the second time. So it's not like you've tried and failed, and then it's took 2 or 3 goes. Like everything you've just mentioned there was like try, and then the second time I did it, try, and then. So that kind of sounds like it's almost your process to go, well, I'll give it a go, because you never know, it might work straight off. And then,
the problem is it gets quite expensive to fail the big stuff. Like, So when I failed my first attempt at Iron 102, it was called, that was a very expensive week, because I'd paid crew up front. So I'd paid all the crew for their time. I'd rented the lake. I had to basically, for this open water lake, which is a private lake, the only way he could pass it by his insurance was if I technically owned the lake for like a leasehold. So I had to buy a leasehold on this lake from like 6 until 9 every morning or something stupid. So that cost money, and then I moved to a pool swim for the second attempt, which is far more sensible. But so yes, if you had all the money in the world, I would just have a crack and work it out, mess it up, and then have another crack. But it just becomes financially impossible to just go in too willy-nilly. So and you know what? The stuff I do so hard, it's not like I'm going in at 30% of where I should be. I'm going in at 85, 90%, but often that's not enough. You need to be 100%. So I'm not going in completely naive. I'm still putting in the hours, but every now and then, especially as they get harder and harder now, as I'm feeling more confident to try more things. Like I wouldn't have tried the tunnel 2 or 3 years ago. I'm 43 now in April, so it's good age for me to do the longer stuff. So I've always had those ideas sort of at the back of my mind, like I'll do them in my mid-40s type thing. So but it's sort of a mixture of a bit of naivety, a bit of restlessness, a bit of, I don't want to say, I'm also in this position where I really hate the idea of everything being planned to the T. And of course, if you fail to prepare to fail, that's definitely true. However, if you plan it to like the nth degree, you sort of take all the adventure out of it. And that's half the fun, is being a bit, being able to move your plans and being, pivot and change direction if things don't go your way.
I think I was going to say, but also something can go slightly wrong, and then it's like, what do I do? Rather than having like little, like, kind of guide rails, I suppose. I was talking about this the other day, because the river's burst its banks down here. And if you've got all of that rain and the water's just flowing all over the place, you can't follow the flow. Whereas if you've got guide rails, but the river's flowing in that direction, that's kind of, I think what you're saying is like you can move in that direction, and you're not veering off all over the place, but there's still room, like slight room for maneuver in the right direction. So that's
what I was going to say as well. It's almost like if you try and micromanage every single detail of something, a project or an event that's that size, it's not all going to go according to plan, is it? So if you're obsessed with that kind of perfectionism and micromanaging, you need that degree of sort of free flow. So Sean, the tunnel that you've mentioned a couple of times, but for just like the listeners and the viewers, this is something that you're doing as we record next weekend in Bath. What is the concept of it, and what is this event that's the next big one, like you say, that's just sort of like a week away for you at the moment?
Yeah, it's been on my radar. So this year, capitalizing on the conditioning from Iron 105. I came out of that with obviously a lot of injuries and a lot of fatigue and things like that, which I'm still not really over, but certainly sort of tendon wise, my fissure, my muscles, and the fissure that goes around them, all that stuff's feeling pretty good. So, for example, I think was it 2 months? 2 months after Iron 105, I ran 105k, and I felt better after that than I did on every day of Iron 105. So, the Iron repeated Ironmans was harder than running 105k. So this year I was sort of like, right, I want to use that conditioning to tick off all these little boxes of stuff that it's been on my radar forever, and I want to do them. So this year, the 3 that I've got booked in at the moment, I've done one already, the Strath Puffer, the 24-hour mountain bike race. I've now got the Tunnel, which is a 200-mile run, 320k run in a 1-mile tunnel. So you just go back and forth, and it's on the Bath Bristol near you, Bath Bristol Tunnel, the south one, and that starts next Friday. So I'm quite excited about that, and the rules are quite strict on that one. The event organizers is hardcore, so you're not allowed any support crew, you're not allowed headphones, you're not allowed walking poles, you're not allowed a tent, you're not allowed a camp, like you're not allowed gazebos, you're not allowed to set up like a base camp. You can basically take a suitcase. I think you might be allowed to take a little table. I'm not sure about that. I need to check. But you can take a suitcase with some supplies, and he provides water and a few snacks. And it's a 55-hour cutoff for 200 miles is quite quick. So, and you have to do the first 127 and a half. So yeah, it's hard. I've always wanted to do it. I've not really been ready for it. I've also felt like I was a bit young as well. So, I'm nearly 43. So I feel like now's a good time to do it. So yeah, we'll see how I go. I've been ill for the last 4 weeks, like properly ill, antibiotics ill. So I'm a bit down on cardio, but you don't really need any cardio for that. So
that's kind of like, that's about, it's about 4 miles an hour, isn't it? For 200 miles. Is that right? Gave me
pretty much, yeah. So you got to do it's a bit slower than that, actually. I think you can, because 4.12 miles an hour gives you 100 miles in 24 hours, right? So I think you can get away with a just under that's 3.8 or something. If you don't want to sleep, if you don't want to nap in the middle. So yeah,
will you aim to, will the strategy be not to nap and just continue, or what would your strategy be going into it?
Ideally, no sleep would be my strategy, but I've got the school run on Friday morning, so it starts at Friday 3:00 in Bath. So I've got to do the school run here in North Wales, and then drive on the Friday, and then start the run, because I was seeing, and I still might be able to work it around the school run with my wife, because my wife starts work at 7 in the morning. So if Nanny and Granddad can maybe sort the kids out on the Friday morning, I might be able to go the Thursday night and then get a proper sleep. If I can do that, then it'll be more likely that I'll be able to sort of do the whole 50 hours without sleep. But because of just life, and then also the other thing is I have to be back on the Monday at 4:00 for scouts. I'm a scout leader. So yeah, so there's basically 2 things to consider. If I don't sleep, let's say even if I can get through without sleeping, I may have to sleep too much, and I may miss getting back for the scouts on the Monday. So yeah, whereas if I have like an hour's sleep, it means I won't need as much sleep after the run, and then I won't be so tired to drive. So yeah.
What do your scout troop make of you being the scout leader? That must be.
Yeah, well, I'm with the squirrels, so they're the best. They're the 4 to 6 year olds. So
hang on. You're going to do a 200-mile run in the dark, pretty much.
Yeah.
Get like a couple of hours sleep, and then have a bunch of 2 to 4 year olds running around.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, I'm super invested in youth sports and youth activity. So I all the money I raise for here in North Wales for the True Venture Foundation, and I'm a scout leader now as well, and Yeah, no, I love it. I'm just super, because I can see, you know, I'm not going to be able to do this forever, right? Just biologically, there's a time where I just won't be fast enough and I won't recover quick enough. So I'm sort of starting what is going to be my third phase of life now, really, which is youth sport and stuff, things like that. So that's quite exciting. But yeah, I mean, life does go on, really. You know, in an ideal world, I'd go down on Wednesday, get an Airbnb with a jacuzzi, and just Netflix and chill for 2 days, and then spend another 2 days after sleeping, and then all hunky dory. But you know, I've got stuff to do and kids to take to school, and you know, scouts to inspire and stuff like that. So yeah, it's busy.
This is what I love about this, because it's interesting, because you look at all the stuff that you do or that you've done, and you think like you're going to be this kind of abnormal. I don't know how to put it, but this kind of abnormal fella who does this. But you're not. You're just this guy who does this stuff, which is brilliant. You know, which I hope that's not downplaying it, and I don't mean any disrespect with that, but when like just having a chat with you and after seeing you on certain like podcasts and stuff like that, it's kind of, yeah, you're just like you say, oh, I've got the school run in the morning and then I've got to be back to do this on Monday, and I'm just doing this over the weekend. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, I've been tested as well. I am normal, by the way. I've been poked and prodded, and I secretly thought I'd be like superhuman and there'd be studies written about me for centuries, but no, I'm pretty normal. I've been tested.
I saw that you were like, all the results came back and it was like bang average, and it was like, oh,
bang
right, okay.
average. No. In fact, I have the salt deficiency, which makes life even harder from hydration point of view. But yeah, no, I am normal. I guess why am I different to other people? I'm really hungry for it. I think it just comes down to that, because you know, running 200 miles in a 1 mile dark tunnel, you've got to want it. You've really got to want it, you know, because it's not like if you win, you get £1 million. There's no prize money. There's no glory. No one cares, really. No one cares. It's a stupid white middle class male thing to do, pretty much. I've seen the entry list. It's mostly just white blokes. You know, it's not like we're changing the world. You know, it's just sport, right? It's just sport. However, that said, I think sport's important. I think sport is very important for health, well-being, community, and all that sort of thing. And hopefully people will look at me and go, bloody hell, Sean, if you can do 105 Ironmans, I can at least bloody go and run 10K. And that gives me an ego boost. So there's an ego thing there. There's a show-off thing there with me, of course, because I get a kick out of people going, because of you, I did this and that. It makes me feel good. And that gives me a reason to carry on, of course. But yeah, you know, you've got to want it. You've just got to want it, really.
That's great as well, though, because like you're saying, there's no reason to do it. You're just doing it, and like you say, nothing. It doesn't change anything or anything like that. So, because I used to think, and you're not genetically predisposed to this sort of stuff, like you've just said, and I used to think, because I'm pretty sure I'm not genetically predisposed for anything, like strength wise or endurance wise or anything. So I used to use that as an excuse all the way through my 20s and half my 30s to not do anything. I'd be like, well, there's no point, because I'm not predisposed to it. So why would I bother? Because I'm never going to get anywhere, which isn't true, because you put the work in and then you get stronger, fitter, faster, whatever than you would ever be anyway, right? Because you do the work. So what would you say to somebody who, because people can watch you do whatever as well and live vicariously through it, can't they? And go like, oh, look at this, isn't that amazing? They never do anything themselves. So it's kind of, I know that you put it like high up there, really high up there, like physical, like you're working with youth sport and all of that, which is great, because there's not much of that in schools these days. Or like, you know, games is a bit different. It's not kind of a part of the curriculum, I suppose, in a major way. So how important to you is that for like your kids, for the scouts, for everyone you work with, to get them kind of into the future being physically active and strong and be able to endure things and overcome things, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, it's all part of the pie, you know. I'd be lying if I said it was my main motivation. I think, truthfully, breaking the record, being the only person on the planet Earth to have done something, that is probably where it stems from. And everyone says I need to go and see a psychologist for that to find out why, but I'm too scared because in case they fix me. So yeah, but it's all part of it. I think if there was no, I would still do it if no one was watching. That's 100% sure. I know that, and I've asked myself that quite a few times because every now and then I'm like, why do I actually do this? It's bloody hard, and I'm probably shortening my life and all these sort of things. But again, I would 100% do it if no one was watching. I would definitely not be on social media if I didn't need to, but I do need to for sponsorship. And also, I feel I have a responsibility. I think it would be selfish for me to go off and try and do these hard things, knowing that even if one person read about it and went, wow, that's cool, it'd be selfish for me not to put it out there to let people have the option of reading about it. Like I was inspired by loads of other people, right? If I had Instagram as a photographer, I definitely wouldn't have been a school portrait photographer. I would have stuck to my guns. I would have seen what it was like to be a National Geographic photographer. I would have seen exactly what they were doing, and that would have inspired me every single day. But for me to get inspired in the sort of the late 90s and early 2000s in the world of travel photography, I had to subscribe to National Geographic magazine, which I didn't do because it was 300 quid a year or whatever it was. It's probably not that much, but it didn't come to me easily. I'd have to go to a library and get a book and get magazines every month. Whereas now you can just go and get inspired on your phone. So I think, knowing how it would have helped me if there was certain content out there when I was a kid that would have helped me, I feel like a responsibility that I need to do that now. So that's part of the pie. Raising money for charity is part of the pie as well. Breaking the world record is part of the pie. Having something to chase, when you've got a big hard goal in life, you're naturally going to do the three things that I think everyone needs to do to lead a better life, which is eat healthier, get fitter, and spend more time outside. It sort of boils down to those three things, I think, personally. I think we get too bogged down now about, you need 11 minutes of sauna and 12 minutes of ice baths and magnesium in the morning and apigenin in the evening and sunlight in the eyeball and grounding on the grass. Like, there's all these super complicated. Everyone's going like, oh my God, what I need? I just want to live an easy life and not easy life, a healthy life. And for me, you want to lead a healthy life, eat better, get fitter, spend more time outside. And if you have a physical goal to work towards, you've got to do those three things anyway. So if I ever become the King of Wales, I'm going to make it mandatory, be like national service. You've got to sign up for some physical challenge that's within your ability.
So Sean, I mean, just to talk about the physicality of what we've talked a lot about what you've done, and you kind of mentioned that you obviously you're in still a kind of a highly conditioned state carrying over from the 105 Ironmans, but and because you said that genetically you're not predisposed to be, you're not kind of like a Kenyan or something, who's kind of got this, endurance kind of genetics. What do you think is the kind of the ratio of physical training? Obviously, you mentioned 40 hours a week, on the bike at one stage. Physical training to, because the kind of things you're talking about, the 105 Ironmans in 105 days, the 200-mile run in a tunnel. What percentage of that is mental mindset, and what percentage is physical conditioning and training in your mind as someone who's doing this stuff?
It's 100% on both. Yeah. So you cannot. It's impossible to do 105 Ironmans with no training. You can be the strongest will in the world. You won't do it. You biologically cannot do it. With no training, there'll be inflammation, there'll be muscle breakdown. You won't be fast enough. You'll time out. It's not going to happen, right? No matter how strong you are. But then again, you can be physically the strongest, triathlete in the world. But if you struggling on the headspace thing, it's going to get you. It's 3.5 months of doing the exact same thing every single day, 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, marathon at the end. You've got to have the willpower and the mental sort of capacity to make decisions when you're tired, to think on the ball. You talked a little bit about micromanaging. You sort of do have to micromanage everything in the day to make sure you don't get injured and you eat enough and you staying on pace, and there's all these sort of things. So there's what I call the 10.5 pillars of endurance, which is planning, experience, health, conditioning, nutrition, hydration, recovery, muscle management, motivation, community, and luck. Luck's the 0.5 at the end. So you really are trying to nail all 10 of those, and then the luck usually comes with it, really, if you nail all the other 10. So again, back to your question, you've got to nail both for the long stuff. For the stuff I do, if you're doing a marathon, it's very, very hard to get a lifelong injury in a marathon, but it's very easy to get a lifelong injury doing 105 or a 200-mile. The tunnel, if there's an injury you could pick up on the tunnel, that if you don't manage it, that could be a lifelong injury. If you get, especially on your knee, if you get a patella misalignment and it starts going off on the edge, in 200 miles, you could wear your cartilage down. There's probably doctors saying that that's incorrect, but you're going to potentially do yourself some serious damage if you're not conditioned enough for something like that. So are you
really talking there, just to clarify, you're talking about maybe running like 200 miles on a slight camber or something like that, where is that
well, there's a million things that could be. It could be the camber. It could be just a tightness that appears. So if you start getting tight in your lower back or the side of your hip, that's going to change your gait, which will pull your kneecap. If your ITB is tight, if that's not had enough training, if your quads get tight, and they can get tight by a bad night's sleep the night before. So unless you've got the experience of a good stretching regime before bed and knowing what's happening while you're doing it, and what needs loosening off, like I get this on the inside quads. You've got your VMO, and then you've got your something longus. Anyway, when my longest, which is the one that goes up to the groin on the inside of my thigh, when that gets tight, it's actually because of my lower back. So, and I only know that now through experience. Now, if I did nothing about that for 200 miles, I may DNF because of pain, probably not me, but someone else maybe. Or you could tear it, you could pull it. There's a lot of things that could go wrong if you don't manage them sort of quite early on. But for the stuff I do, and a lot of people like me do, there's 50 people doing this tunnel race, so it's not just me. You've got to be bang on the headspace and the conditioning, really.
I always think what you were talking about there is like basically you're tracking on a car. If it's slightly out, one wheel's going 200 miles in that direction, or say 50 miles in that direction, while the car's going 200 miles in that direction, and that knacks your tires. And the tires are the only thing holding you on the road, aren't they? So it's like it's a similar
especially
thing.
on a road run where everything's sort of linear. On a trail run, you're bouncing here and there, and you're moving the energy around different muscle groups and that sort of thing. But after 200 miles, if at mile 150 you change trainers and there was a millimeter difference in the drop, that would cause an injury. Not a serious injury, but you'd feel it. It happened on the Ironmans for me. I changed trainers to a slightly more cushioned trainer on day 20 something, and I picked up an ankle thing straight away, immediately, like literally within 100 meters, because all of a sudden I had, I think was it like a 4 mil lower, which is quite big, 4 mil lower drop on the new shoes, which was then just giving more, a couple of tendons kind of a bit more stretched than they were used to, really. So I had to, I was putting blooming pieces of paper in my shoe. Only for a day. It just took a day or two for things to iron themselves out, and then everything was new, used to the new shoes, and then we were good to go.
Because we had Phil Maffetone on the podcast a couple of times, who trained Mark Allen for Ironman back in, I think that was like the late 80s
the
and
80s
90s. Yeah. And
90s, I think,
and so in terms of and he talks a lot obviously about the math method and building the aerobic base, and then you can so for doing the huge endurance stuff that you do, is that really building that kind of aerobic? But I'd imagine, because you're doing stuff kind of all the time and you're always training for something, and the next thing, your base must be incredibly high, and then you're almost just peaking or tweaking or specializing for different events. Is that kind of how it works for you? Or
yeah, sort of. My aerobic doesn't need to be massive. Like my average heart rate on Iron 105 was 105, 110. So it's pretty low heart rate. So it's top end of zone 1, bottom end of zone 2. So I was never pushing it super high. So I never built a massive it came naturally anyway. When you do lots of zone 2, you're naturally going to get better. But yeah, for the ultra stuff, it's interesting. The guy who just broke the record for the most for the backyard ultra. So the backyard ultras, you run 4.1 mile every hour on the hour until everyone drops out and you're the last one standing, right? Yeah, he did 430 something miles, I think, over 4 days. It's incredible. Yeah, it's amazing. But he I think he only does a 4-hour marathon. Honestly, he said, "Oh, one day I might see if I can do a sub 3." But this is the best ultra runner in the world. He can only do a 4-hour marathon, so it's a completely different game. Is my point. And as soon as you get longer, just it comes down massively. Like, for example, the record for the most number of pull-ups in a minute is something like 90. But if you want to do, the most number of pull-ups in an hour, it's only like 6 a minute or something, so it goes from 90 in a minute down to 6 in a minute or something or somewhere that's pretty low. When you think about it, I think I could do 6 in a minute, but actually it's quite hard.
We had a guy called Mark Tonner on, who's a disabled athlete. He got he was in the military, and he's lost the use of, I can't remember which one of his arms. It might be his left arm. He's lost the use of it, but he did a 24-hour deadlift, like marathon thing. Wow. And he tried it. The first time he tried it, he could lift 200 kilos. So he was like, I'll just do 5 reps with 200 kilos for like 24 hours every 10 minutes or whatever it was. And he said he fried after 3 hours,
didn't he? Yeah.
And he was using 60 kilos by the end. So he did it again on the day after Boxing Day, and he was using 100 kilos. And he wanted to lift over 100,000 kilos, and he managed to do 130,000 or something like that.
Wow.
But it's similar to what we were saying earlier. He tried it first and went no, and then he learned from that experience, and then he knew what he was doing afterwards. But yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think we better start wrapping up, Pete. I think, but I mean, we've barely touched on some things, but I mean, it's just the way it was going to be. I think with the resume that you've got and the amount of things that you've done, Sean. I mean, we weren't going to be able to zero in on everything, but I mean, just to give, hopefully, just from this, a lot of the people who listen and watch this will then go on to kind of follow you, and they can spend more time, delving deeper and listening to other interviews. Because I mean, you've done a huge amount of you've had a huge amount of media attention, haven't you? Like in terms of print media and radio and TV and all the rest of it, interested in what you do. I mean, does that really help you to drive, I suppose, sponsorship and funding and things like that? Like you said, you wouldn't be on social media if you didn't need to be on social media, because it's not something you particularly enjoy, but it's a necessary evil, I suppose, of what you do. Is that the way you kind of view the media stuff as well?
Yeah, so it's weird. Like, I do enjoy the media stuff because it's inevitably leads to more money being raised for charity, and it's fun. You just can't take it too seriously and know that everyone's going to have forgotten about you tomorrow, and that's just life, really. So you just have a bit of fun with it and crack on. But I mean, I'm proud of the 7 books I've written. I'm proud of the 3 documentaries on Amazon Prime at the minute. So yeah, all that bit is really fun, actually. And the photographer in me really enjoys actually sort of creating visual creativity and visual art and taking photos and that sort of thing. So yeah, as I say, it's not all hate.
Oh no. What just quickly, Sean, what are the names of the documentaries on Amazon?
Just search my name. Yeah, just
search your name. Okay.
Yeah,
because I find one thing with Amazon is it's almost like you need to go on there and know what you're looking for, because I really find that it's like you know, if you know what you're looking for, you go into the search and you find it straight away. But it's almost like going into a jumble sale. There's so much stuff in that you just kind of stumble upon things, don't you? But if you know what you're looking for, so if you just type in Sean Conway on Amazon,
if you just search Sean Conway on Amazon on Amazon Prime, it'll give you the 3 docs on books. There's 7 books there, or 6, 7. I've written 7, but there's one we don't talk about. We'll leave it at that.
oh God!
Like 50 Shades of Grey or something. It was a bit like that, was it?
Yeah, it's 50 Shades of Ginger. It's on my OnlyFans at the minute.
Oh dear.
Oh, blimey. Yeah. No, honestly, this is like, really appreciate you coming on, Sean. This has been amazing. And like I say, like James was saying, you know, we've only just touched the surface, haven't we? We could have been talking for hours. But yeah, so I know, well, if you want to be found on social media, where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, just search my name on everything. Yeah, Sean Conway.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I guess if you really want to read and look at stuff, my website, seanconway.com, has a long list of stuff that even I have to go back and check to remember what I've got up to over the last 12 years.
Do you know what I did notice? I can't remember what it was, but there was something where it said you'd done something 6 times, and then on another page it said you'd done it 7 times. It might have been the books. You had 6 books and then 7 books or something.
Yeah, well, as I said, I've written 7, but there's one we don't talk about. So.
I know why now. Because I was like, it looks like even Sean's forgotten what he's done. He must have to sit there and go, what have I done again?
Yeah. That is true with the books, though. Like, you know, if I have a pile of books, you know, I take loads of books to my talks. You know, I've got a speaking tour coming up, and I have to sort of like look at them and go, like, have I got all of them? Like, there must be one missing yet.
Yeah, because you're in Belfast, aren't you? On the
Belfast in April.
Yeah,
I'm currently booking venues at the minute. I'm just sort of I should have had this all sorted out last year, but I've just been swamped. So I think we've definitely got Swansea. I think probably Dublin as well. Cape Town is going to happen as well. So yeah, watch your space. Yeah, hopefully everything will be the next couple.
You do them in that order: Swansea, Cape Town, then Dublin.
Yeah, no.
Good planning.
I haven't worked out dates yet. Yeah, I haven't worked out dates yet. So yeah, we'll see.
Excellent. Well, like I say, I really appreciate coming on. So thank you very much. Yeah. So James, have you got anything you want to? I'm a bit rusty.
No, I just think that was absolutely brilliant. No, it was great, and I just encourage everybody who's listening to go on Instagram. It's a Sean Conway Adventure, and it's a fantastic Instagram account. There's so much stuff on there, which I highly recommend everybody do. And I will be doing that this weekend, getting on, because I didn't realize you had the documentaries on Amazon Prime, so I'll go on and have a look at that this weekend. No, it's great. And the tunnel, the fact that you mentioned that at the start, and we kind of were aware of it because someone else had mentioned that as a kind of a long-term goal as well, is absolutely great. So no, that's brilliant.
Well, that was Chris, and he's another ginger guy with a beard. So maybe you can get a whole. Yeah. And then we've got Paul McElroy on next week, who's from Belfast. With a big ginger beard. So we could get like
there's a whole bunch of us, man. There's Russ Cook, Bo Miles, myself.
That'd be amazing. Just one massive event. We could do cheese rolling. We'll do that.
All us gingers, we're just trying to prove to the world we do have souls.
Yeah, but you'd have to do it. You can't do it in the height of summer. That's not
true.
allowed.
No, that's true. We are vampires too, of course.
Anyway.
No, that's cool. Again, honestly, I really appreciate it, Sean. Thank you very much.
Nice one, chaps. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. And James, you wrap up, James.
I'll wrap up then. Yeah, just to say thank you very much for everybody for listening, for watching. We are picking up new listeners and viewers every week, so welcome if you are new. You can go to healthoddity.com, where I think we've got every single episode on there, Pete, haven't we? Now in audio and video format that you can watch and you can catch up on. And we will definitely have to keep an eye out for Sean, obviously, seeing how he gets on next weekend in Bath in the tunnel, which will be brilliant. So as Pete just mentioned, we will be back next week with episode 185 with the return of Paul McElroy from Belfast. So we'll be back then. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform. And as soon as we've got some new reviews in, we'll be giving away the Health Oddity merch for good reviews left on the various platforms that we're on. And until next week, bye-bye, Sean.
See ya. That's chaps.
And bye-bye, Pete.
Ta-ra.
And we'll see you next week. Take care, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.